Give a good night. All right. Welcome back to a brand new video of the Talking Video program, Talking Video Prince. Do you see what I'm talking about? See the New York Predators Department? That's why I got up, because I saw them. And I was like, you know what, let me get up and record it. All right, because of what they were doing. A lot of noise campaign. You know, when, you know, during the day today. Very loud at times. And I did a recording, and then they did it again. And I went to launch the my phone camera app, and then they stopped the, and then they turned off their sirens, right? Again, like I said, whenever they started, look at they move, look at her, standing there, sees me walking over, and then walks over to stand up in front of her, right there, look. You tell her, whew, love it, exposing the asses. Oh yeah, they think they slick. It's not working anymore though, right? And they hate it. They hate the fact that, you know, the lies and manipulation is being uncovered, and the deception is being uncovered and being exposed, and they don't like that. Again, the red again. See a lot of red themes, right? And they've been going. I think this is the longest they've ever engaged in using the color red. You know, the psychological color warfare, right? This has been the longest. Now, also, what I talk about today, you see people wearing black, and it'll be in pairs of twos. If you go and you look at the videos today, you'll see it will be in pairs of twos, right? Again, and how they're moving and what it is that they do, right? So yeah, open up a book bag, look. Right? So you know, I gotta take my book bag off my back, hold in the front of me. Look. Now, imagine you waiting for the bus. The bus stop is right here, but you waiting at the corner right there for the longest while, because when I got off the bus, I started walking towards the intersection, she was over there. As soon as I turned to walk across the street, then she moves in the middle of the sidewalk as you cross the intersection. You know, the whole blocking theme, right? Same shit. Exposing their asses. They're gonna learn though. They're gonna learn. Yeah, of course she masked up, right? She wanted to show her face. Bunch of cowards. Wait, didn't they pass the free bus law? Huh? They didn't pass the free bus law?
Free bus?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're a bus driver, you should know.
Yeah, but I only know about this. I don't know.
They didn't pass the free, maybe tomorrow? So tomorrow the bus will be free, right?
I don't know.
No, I'm just playing with you, man. Because I was talking to a bus driver. He didn't like the fact that it was going to be a free thing, that Mandani was going to, you know, he's looking for the free bus thing, right?
I don't know about that.
I told him, I said, what are you worrying about? It's not like your salary is going to go up. Only the big rig salary go up, right? You know what I'm saying? So what you worried about, you know? Exactly.
I don't even know about it. So.
Yeah, and right now he's trying to pass a $30 an hour minimum wage.
Okay.
See, you know, that's a mayor. Despite what people think, and particularly for us as black people, we're into that whole religion Christian shit. And then we put these people in office that call themselves Christians, and they're all about the corporations, right? And now that, you know, you have a mayor who is Muslim, but he doesn't put his religious belief over his political ideology, and that's how you got to be. That is why he's pushing for $30 an hour.
Listen, he didn't push all of the how much he wants.
I know, but they're gonna say no. I know, but what does that tell you though? It'll tell you that people who really want to push for progress, they're always going to be resisted by those who claim to speak about progress but don't really mean it. You understand? And then he's also pushing to take over the buildings of these slumlords, which I think is a good idea. To take over the building of these slumlords, which I think is a good idea. You know,
That's what you're pushing to
that's
do.
what you're pushing to do also, which is I think it's a good idea. You
Now,
know,
let me say this, and I'm going to say this, and I'm sure you can check it out for yourself. Although, you see why they put it in there? You understand? It's because of this war that's happening. You understand? What's the brain, their people.
well, you know what? I don't really think it's because of the war, because he's very outspoken about Trump. What I think happened is that after Eric Adams, people got tired, and they said, you know what, because you see what happened in England. You had the Muslim mayor of England, which was very progressive at the time. So
They look out for their people.
not really, because a lot. Listen, no, that's true, but here's the thing: when you look at his administration is more diverse. You understand? His administration is not just Arabs and Muslim. Because if you understand where he comes from, right? You understand that not only has he been an outspoken political figure as well as a professor, but a lot of his political ideology also comes from other black political figures as well as black political educators.
But the whole point of
You understand?
all of that, although you might have all that, you have a talking.
And remember, he grew up in Uganda,
Right,
so he's been around black people for all his life.
it's only gone worse.
I know, but listen.
He would always look out.
Listen. I'll say this, right? Under Eric Adams brought back, stop and frisk, right? He was one of the most corrupt mayors, and as a black man, I have to say I was ashamed of that, because as black people, when we get into those positions, you know how it is, brother. We are always being watched. We are all, the fact that he doesn't have lawyers to talk about the ethical things that he's doing, or non-ethical things that he's doing. This is our biggest mistake.
You voted for Obama?
No.
I did.
Obama and the Democrats were a joke. The first 2 years of his presidency, they should have passed every legislation they could have, including universal health care.
So why? Why do you think that happened?
Why you think? No. Let me tell you why it didn't happen. Because whether it's Republican or Democrat, right? Those who control them is not the people that voted for them.
No.
It's those that put money in their pocket and fund their political career. I know.
So, and I would say this to you. What did he pass? I talk about Obama now, right?
Yeah.
What did he pass that everybody praised it for?
The Affordable Care Act.
Huh?
The Affordable Care Act. The Affordable Health Act, I should say.
I hear.
The Affordable Health Act, Healthcare Act.
No.
Okay, what is it? What did he pass?
Gay rights.
Oh, the gay rights?
That's it. That's why he was put here.
Listen. That's a distraction. That's a distraction, and you want to know why that's a distraction?
Why?
Because when you look at the overall majority of people in America, look at the American population. All right, 330 million people, and you're talking about a group that is very small, to anywhere from 7 to 10 million Americans consider themselves that, right? But yet they push it as some sort of, well, it is an agenda. But I want you to understand how powerful the media is, and how powerful the left.
Who controls it? That's what
I know. It's the wealthy elites. You ever hear about transhumanists?
I heard about all of them.
Okay, so the transhumanist agenda, right, was created by these wealthy white men who are transgender, who are gay and transgender, right?
Who are they? You see the guy that just walked in here?
Uh-huh.
This neighborhood that you're in right now? These are the people that control it. Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Listen. I say
all of them. All of it.
Yeah, but I say this. I say this, right? I say this, that when you look at other groups of people, right, when it comes to who they are as a people, they put who they are as a people first above their religious ideology. Black people, we put religion over who we are as a people, and that's our downfall.
No, let me show you this. Do you believe in the Bible or you don't? You don't read the Bible?
I read the Bible. I know the Bible. I used to be a Christian.
used to be a Christian.
Yeah.
But you never used to follow the Bible. Yes.
My brother, no one follows the Bible.
Yes, you do. Yes,
No one, and I'm going to prove it to you. No one follows the Bible. You want to know why?
Why?
Because it is impossible to follow the Bible because there are too many interpretations and many people interpret it how they want to interpret it.
No.
That's why.
Once you read that and it says, thou shalt not, or thou shalt, or thou shalt, you follow that. Once you see thou shalt not, do not follow. Once you see thou
but
shalt,
here's the thing. The majority of people who call themselves Christians do a lot of things that in the Bible it says thou shalt not.
right, because they're not. Because they are not.
But they're the Christians, bro.
Let me show one simple thing.
So what's a Christian?
Huh?
What's a Christian?
Christian, the word Christian means follower of Christ.
Okay.
That's what the word
And who was Jesus Christ?
Huh?
And who was Jesus
A
Christ?
black man like you and me.
Okay, but what was his ideology?
His ideology is to bring back the people to the Most High God. Bring back his people. His people. And the people were the 12 tribes. And you are part of that 12 tribes. You are a part of that tribe.
All right. I want you to go and look this up, right?
Yes.
In the 1980s, they had a conference of bishops and cardinals, right? And they have said, right, through going through all of the records, right, that in the Bible, Jesus never said 80% of the things that is written in the Bible that Jesus said. Have you ever read the Gnostic Gospels?
The Gnostic?
Yeah.
I never done.
Okay, so the Gnostic Gospel are other books of the Bible that was left out by the Catholic Church. See, the Bible you read now was created by the Roman Catholic.
No, it's not.
Yes, it was.
Let me show you this. If the Roman Catholics,
It was.
if the Roman Catholics, yeah, like you said, that they created that Bible, right?
Yes.
Your whole history is in there, and the whole history of them to be destroyed is in there.
Yeah, but you know, again, how it's interpreted is the. You see, if you look at movies, if you read the Harry Potter book, so Harry Potter is fiction, but it has real cities. You know, New York, London, such and such. They may have pictures of the past presidents that are real, right? But it does not mean everything in Harry Potter is fiction mixed with truth, right? Or reality, right? So here's the thing: you have to decide. And again, how do you know that? If you are not reading, have you ever read the Septuagint?
I never read the Septuagint.
Okay, see, there you go.
No,
the Septuagint is the oldest Bible. Is the Bible that Jesus would be using in his days to teach. You understand?
The word Bible.
Bible, Helios Biblios. It's the Sun Book.
Right.
That's what it is. It's the Sun Book.
It's not.
Yes, it is. My brother, I study these things.
Okay.
Why do you think I moved from Christianity?
Listen.
My brother, my father was a pastor. You know that?
Right,
And my mother a deaconess. And I read this shit. And I
never used to follow the book.
Nope. Because guess what? I can read ancient religious texts. Yes. Okay, so when I tell you that this book was created by the Romans, when you say Jesus, the letter J was not invented until 1524. So it's not no Jesus, right? It's Yeshua.
Yeshua, whatever.
And what is the translation of Yeshua to English? It is not Jesus. It is Joshua.
It's Joshua. It's
right?
It's Joshua. It's Emmanuel.
No. But Emmanuel does not translate to Jesus. See, here's the thing. You see, Christians love to talk about, you know, when it comes to Isaiah when it comes to Isaiah and the man. So if you read that entire passage in Isaiah, they use that to say that's the coming of the prophecy of Jesus. That's a lie. Go and read the entire thing. Okay. So if you read the entire thing, you would know that when Isaiah was talking to King Ahab, he was talking about a son that was going to be born to King Ahab, not to some Mary. And if you read, and if you right, but if you no, that's not what they say. Because I used to go to church, and every time they would read those passages, they would end it when they said his name would be called Emmanuel, and they would not read any further. They don't do that in church. So if you read the entire passage, my brother, it talks about it's not because the child was born. And if you continue reading, that child was born.
He was 2 years old.
He was born. So it's not Jesus.
Yes, it was.
No, it's not Jesus. How could it be
Yeshua?
How could it be Jesus when Isaiah is at least 200 years before Jesus?
Because he was prophesying that this was to come. Yes.
No, because the child was already born to King Ahab. So how could it be Jesus? Yes, he was. Read the Bible. Go ahead and read it. Go ahead and read the entire thing.
I read that.
Read it. No, brother, you're missing it. Go back and read it again, because Emmanuel was born, and he talks about how that child was going to he'd be eating what? Honey and what?
Honey.
Okay, when Jesus was born, Jesus wasn't eating honey and
no,
stuff.
Who he was talking about in that? When you mentioned that honey and stuff,
brother, that was Emmanuel.
That was Sam. That's what
no,
Samson.
No, that was Emmanuel.
Yes, that was Samson.
My brother, go read the Bible again.
That was before.
See,
that was
the
before
problem with Christian is that, like I said, y'all have so many different interpretations, or religious people have so many different interpretations that y'all don't get the text. What you need to do is go and get the strong concordance, the Greek and the Greek translation, right? And it's going to give you the proper meaning of these words.
English, Adam. I don't need the Greek.
No, you can use Google to translate it.
Yes,
right?
Look, the whole point is this. The whole point is this.
Yeah.
Everything that's happening right before your eyes right now, I can show you that it's in the Bible, that it's written.
Okay, but do you know that history repeats itself, right?
It repeats
okay.
itself. No, let me say this to you.
Right? So you know that history repeats itself. You can predict certain things, right?
Okay.
It has nothing to do with no biblical thing.
Listen to this. History repeats itself.
Right.
Does it have, back in those days, missiles?
But in the Bible, don't have no missiles.
Yes, and I can show you that.
No, it doesn't. It talks about meteor showers. See, that's the thing.
Meteor shower.
It's not missiles. But anyway, listen. If I see you again, go and read that Isaiah with the entire thing, okay? Read it again.
I can show you.
Read it again.
If I come and see you again, get me one chapter.
Right.
Get me a chapter. We're gonna talk about that chapter.
Okay, but I'm gonna get you from the Hebrew version, right? The Hebrew.
No problem.
Or from the Septuagint.
You get it from
because
the Septuagint.
And I'm gonna translate to English, and you're gonna see how different it reads. All right.
Get it.
All right, my brother. Okay. All right, man. Now, let me correct it. I was talking a whole bunch of stuff. You know, I cannot really. I don't read Hebrew in a sense, but if I do the translation. So that's what I do. All right, let's get that straight. You're not going to hear me speaking Hebrew, because again, that Hebrew is not the Hebrew that they spoke in ancient times. In ancient times, they speak Korean Greek. You understand? And then from Korean Greek, they created Hebrew. Right? I talk about Joseph Yehuda, a Jewish linguist who talks about who did the research, right? And they banned his book. All right? So, I guess you could say that. I mean, I've been to speak Hebrew, but I can use Google Translate to actually read it, and speak it also, because you can use Google pronunciation, right? So it'll teach you how to pronounce it. But anyhow, Christians love to talk about that shit, about Emmanuel and this and that. Like I said, the word, the translation of Jesus comes from the Greek word, from the Latin word, actually. Where you going, bro? Anyway. So before Jesus, it was Jesus. You can go back and check the first edition of the King James Bible. You will see Jesus, Ion, meaning John, when they translated, right? Go and get the first translation of the King James Version, not the second edition. Because the second edition, they added the J. So that's the Latin pronunciation, right? And then, they added the J. But let's go back even further. So before Jesus, which is the Latin conversion of the word Zeus. Why? Because Hebrews didn't speak Hebrew, ancient Hebrew. That's why there's no record of any ancient Hebrew. Right? When you read the Septuagint, which is the oldest Bible that we have today, right? It is in Greek, Korean Greek. Now they will say, well, they destroyed all of the ancient Hebrew manuscripts, right? That's written in Hebrew. But again, that's bullshit, because we have surviving Egyptian papyri. We have surviving ancient Roman texts. We have surviving ancient Greek texts. But you will never find ancient Hebrew, because Hebrew came out of the Greek language. Okay? So again, when they talk about ancient Hebrew, ask them. The oldest Bible that we have on record, that we have today, right? The Septuagint. So I mentioned this, I said, have you ever read the Septuagint? He was like, no. Again, because, you know, they read a book and they talk about this. It's the Roman that invented Christianity, right? Black people were involved in that. Black Africans were involved in that. There's no question about that. And like I said to them, I said, you know, history repeats itself, right? That's why in the Bible you see a lot of repetitions. A lot of the same format in the stories, right? Same concepts, same ideas, except they may change the name of the character. You know, they may add certain things, right? And if you go, like, for example, you know, Moses part in the Red Sea, you can find that in the Kemetic tale called the Golden Lotus, which is at least 1,000 years older than the concept in the Bible of Moses part in the Red Sea. I post it all the time on my Facebook page, right? The idea of Moses being put in a basket that's in the river, right? That concept didn't start with Moses, right? It starts with I think it was the Assyrian or Babylonian king, a child, I forgot his name, but he was also put in a reef and sent down the river. Again, older than that. So they've taken concepts and ideas from ancient cultures and different cultures and crafted this Bible, right? So whether it be the Septuagint, right, and going forward to the New Testament, you'll see. And like I said, if you go and you read the very first version of the English translation of the Latin Vulgate, because that's what it's called, right? See, many people don't even know that, right? So you have the Septuagint, then you have the Latin Vulgate. Okay? Now think about that, right? You had the Septuagint, and then the Romans created the New Testament, which you will find the Latin Vulgate. But in the Septuagint, there is no New Testament. Right? There is no New Testament. This is, like I said, this is why they left out other books, because other books would fill in the gap. So when I talk about the Ethiopian Bible, which is older than any translation, except for I would say it would be the Septuagint, the Latin Vulgate, then the Ethiopian Bible, and then you have the current Bibles that we have today, all based off of the King James version going forward. Even though you had the Wycliffe Bible, you had the what's the other Bible? The Timsdale Bible. Then you had the Old English Bible. Now, either the Old English or the Timsdale Bible does not include the New Testament, but you will find the New Testament in the Wycliffe Bible, as well as the first edition of the King James and the second edition, as the first edition of the King James, not the second edition. Okay? So when I told him that, you know, Yeshua translated to English as Joshua, you know, then he says Emmanuel. Well, how could that be? How could Emmanuel, when you translate it to English, it becomes Jesus? So again, the confusion and what's going on inside their head. See, they get a little bit of excitement. And I used to be the same way too. We always used to be the same way. We talk about the Bible, right? We get all excited. Yeah, because that's what they do in church, get you excited. So you outside talking about, you get excited. You know, you don't really think, right? You're not thinking. You're just regurgitating the lies and the BS, all right? So like I told him, I said, go and read that entire book, because go and read the entire passage of Isaiah, all of Isaiah. You'll see that child called Emmanuel, like I told him, I said, I remember in church, they would stop right there. About a child be born unto a maiden, a virgin, that they would say, and he should be named Emmanuel. And then they will go to Jesus. They don't read the entire thing. That's what I said to you, because if you continue to read that, I think it talks about this child growing up to know the difference between right and wrong, and no child really knows the difference between right and wrong, okay? Let me just say this. And grow up to drink curds with milk or what have you. And you can't grow up living on that shit. You need some form of solid food, right? But they miss all of that shit, right? They miss all of that, because if you read that, you'll see that the child Emmanuel was born. It's not Jesus. It's not Jesus. But they do a lot of going back and forth. Why? Because when these books were put together, right? They were put together in an unorganized way. For example, the first gospel is not the book of John, right? But the book of Matthew. Matthew is the first gospel to be written, right? So you see how they change it. And you can go Google the shit yourself and you'll see, right? And if you read the story of Jesus in Matthew, Luke, Mark, and John, in particular crucifixion, they're all different. You know, I mean, the concept is there, but it's different. It's like, you know, how many women was at the tomb? How many did they see Jesus? Did they say something? Did they remain silent? All this stuff that, you know, Christians will dilly and dally because they can't think, right? They can't think, right? So my brother get excited. It's about you and the 12th tribe of Israel and this and this. Bullshit. It's all bullshit. You're talking about a small group of people, right, who was in Egypt, because again, you go and read the book Israel in Egypt, all this concept came out of Kemet. So what is the original source of where these concepts was taken from, right? I shouldn't say all of them, but most of them. And then you have the Babylonian text, right? The Epic of Gilgamesh, go and read that. It talks about the flood, Unapishtim, and how you know, this family was told that, you know, the gods were angry and they were going to flood the earth, and so they give instructions to build a boat. And guess what? Just like, you know, in the Bible it had a dove, in the Babylonian toll of creation, it was a raven, right? And that's older than the Old Testament. So again, because we don't like to read, and we are not around, or we don't have those other kind of knowledge to really question things and to really look into things, you know. So, you know, and then the Christian will be like, well, you know, you listen to these white scholars, you talk about white people. Listen, some of these white scholars are actually brilliant people, right? And they'll tell the truth. But, you know, when they tell the truth, they get attacked by other white people who are religious. You understand? Doesn't mean that they're not racist. It just means that at least they're speaking the truth about the topic of religion, and particularly Christianity and Judaism, right? That's all. You know, I'm not. I mean, if you you know, speak in knowledge, right? Yeah, you could be a racist. Listen, they got psychopaths that speak the truth about certain things. It doesn't mean because you listen to them that you're going to be a psychopath. It just means that there's certain things that they say that is true. They got liars at times who will turn around and tell you the truth about certain things, and turn around and lie right back to you. But you got to be able to discern what the truth that they're telling from the lie that they're telling. Right? So you got to have discernment. Right? This is something, again, that we, you know, most people don't even understand, don't have. Right? And again, when you talk about Rome, and like I said, if Jesus was to come today, right, Christians would be the one that hang him up on the cross. Well, not the white racist evangelicals. They're all about the hell and damnation. They're all about the rapture, right? You know, while everybody else preaching about love and this and that, they talk about, well, Jesus said he came not to bring peace, but to start a war, right? You see, that's the Jesus they don't talk about in the Bible, right? Jesus said, I did not come to bring peace, but I came to start a war. I came to bring fire. I came to turn a house against each other. Brother against brother, father against son, mother against daughter, and so forth and so forth. But then they turn around and say, Jesus come to earth to love everybody, right? But no, but Jesus said, you know, don't go the way of the Gentiles. He said, go look for the lost shepherd, which is, you know, the people who believe in what he believes, right? He did not want other groups. Jesus was a separatist. He was. Because Jesus was, just like how these European Jews are today. They're radical, particularly the Orthodox, they're radical in their belief system. You know, so was Jesus. So was the Hebrews back then. They were that's why they were warring with Rome all the time. Right? Because Rome was trying to convert their people, because why? Because, you know, Rome wanted to profit off of them eating certain types of food and dress in some type of way because, again, it's money. We tend to overlook the fact that these things were written to control us and to profit from us, right? And they have historicalized it and have gotten us to believe in that historicalization, but it's not true. It's not true. You can't find one biblical character other than King Cyrus, which was, again, who was the Messiah, which God said that's my Messiah. And also, King Hezekiah, right? Pharaoh Ramses. Okay, but any of your biblical, so-called biblical fathers, what have you, Abraham, Moses, you can't find them. Neither can you find Matthew, Luke, John, or whoever, because these people did not write the Bible. And scholars know this. Biblical scholars know this. They've been speaking the truth for the longest time, that there were no people named Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But we refuse to listen. We refuse to learn because we are brainwashed and indoctrinated, and we cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. So we have tunnel vision. Our mind is in darkness. We are a people that have a dead mind because we are not allowed to think, only to believe. And so when those of us who they know have that ability, or they see that potential, they have to strike you down, right? They have to manipulate you, try and deceive you, right? So you can say you can use the biblical narrative in that sense, but except it's not one Christ, it's many Christs. Because why? Because if you look at the definition of the word Christ, it means anointed. And who were the people that was first called Christ, particularly in Kemet? It was the high priest and the priestess. It was those that have knowledge. But we tend to not want to understand this and know this. Because in order for them to remove the Christ in each and one of us and keep us dumbed down, they have to give you a Christ inside of you so that you would hope that, he'll come back one day while they're oppressing you and keeping you at the bottom of the society. Right? I mean, look at the Muslims. Their religion. The Arabs. Their religion is Muslim. In Iran, it's the ancient religion is Zoroastrianism, right? Zoroastrianism, not Zoroastrianism. And look what they've done. They're building drones, building missiles, what have you. Look at the Arab Emirates. They're building all these huge cities. But when you look at cities in Africa, it is only because of China and Russia, and where you have some African nations that have been modernized so far, right? But these African nations that have been modernized, we're talking about just one city. We're not talking about multiple cities within those nations, right? Because the majority of our people are Christians or Muslim. But we as black people, we're not expected to become thinkers, even though there are thinkers amongst us. We have the smartest people in the world, right? You know what I'm saying? We do. But they engage in what? Psychological warfare, environmental warfare, medical warfare, in order to keep those amongst us who are some of the most brilliant from progressing. And particularly if they have an African mindset, they're not going to get anywhere. If they cannot use you to profit off of you as a black person, I think who said it? It was Dr. Clark, and he says, "What good is an education if that education is preventing you from helping your people progress?" Right? I'm gonna leave you guys with that. All right. Talk to you guys in another. Look at that. Switching my camera. What's up, my brother? Right, but anyway, as I was saying, right, it's a good thing I looked at this. They just switched my camera. But yeah, right, if you as a black person and you consider yourself highly educated, but that education is preventing you from helping your people progress, then what good is that education? Then it's just for yourself. And that's not really an education. That's an indoctrination. All right? Fred Hampton said what? Education is key. Power to the people. But if you're educated, and you feel that because you're educated, that you don't got to go and educate other black people, because you feel you pay so much for your degree, right? That's selfishness. Those who hide knowledge and keep it amongst themselves are working for your enemy, my enemy, and their enemy. They just don't realize it yet. Money is something that they use to control us because why? They keep us at the bottom. They understand the mindset that's created. When you keep a people at the bottom hungry, then what's going to happen? You have them fighting among each other for what little scraps that you want to, shove off the table, right? Now, this is what I talk about. Malcolm X said it. We have yet to realize it. And things are getting bad. It's getting worse. I've been saying this for over a decade and a half, trying to educate people on what's going on. Right? And it's going to get worse. Our young children have no future. And we have yet to realize that. We want to give them God, and white people are giving their children $124 trillion. We want to put a Bible in their hand and make them continue this indoctrinating process to dumb down their mind. Look at our young people today. Right? They're so uneducated. Right? And because their parents are also uneducated. And I don't mean because you got a college degree, that kind of education. Okay? I mean teaching them what goes on behind the scenes, looking at our reality. Instead of telling them you go to college and get education, you get a good job, right? Don't tell them that alone. Tell them that when you start a business, learn about your history. Understand Quentin Pro is still alive today. That they're still setting up black people, particularly black men and black boys in particular, because we see it because the number of exonerated people who come out of prison are black men. Right? I just read an article of 2 black men who was found not guilty of a crime, and the judge still sentenced them to prison. And they spent decades in jail. It's ridiculous. Right? But we're not talking about these things. They're not talking about it in the church because the church have become the agents of our destruction. The church and the pastors have become agents of our destruction. And we have yet to understand that. Our women are the way that they are today. Right? Your Bible, Jesus tell you that I will turn her into Jezebel, and I will make her lay on the bed and have men of all nations sleep with her, and I will destroy her and her children. And you look at black people today, not black people, Negropean people, particularly Negropean women, they themselves are being destroyed and their children are being destroyed. And why? Because they have separated themselves from the men because they want to all live some luxury lives, chasing some fleeting dream, as Bob Marley says. You talk about, being free is a fleeting illusion. But we have our women who've been conditioned through cognitive warfare, always dreaming about luxury. That an average man can't even take them to dinner. They want a $500 plate dinner, right? And they expect every man to do that for them. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, right? But people have yet to understand what's going on. Like I said, these devils have created technology to manipulate our minds in ways that we don't even want to understand or don't care to understand. And we always talk about Jesus was the truth. But you got people who've been in our group of people who've come, who've told us the truth, and we ignore them. Why? Because they don't call themselves Christians. Do Christians never call themselves Christians? Particularly the Christians that we have today. In ancient time, the only people who were called Christians were the worshippers of Serapis. Again, documented, right? Where you have Emperor Herodotus says that the people who worship Serapis are called Christians, and the bishop of Serapis will call the bishop of Christ. How many of you know that? Again, Christ is there is nobody called a Christ. There's never a Jesus Christ. The word Christ means to anoint, right? The word Christ, go look it up. The word Christ means to anoint. No one was ever named Jesus Christ, right? They said Serapis Christos or Serapis Christ, but it did not mean that was his name. It just meant that he was the God that was anointed. The priests in the temples were called Christ. Because why? Because they had the knowledge. Right? So it goes back to you elevating your mind, your consciousness to open up your Christ mind. But when the Romans historicalized Jesus and tried to make him into a historicalized figure, what they did was to take the Christ out of you and I, and you were waiting for some Christ to come back to save you. when the only person that can save you is you and the people around you. All right? But we don't want to understand that. I always say, look at what they did to Europe. They had to take away the knowledge from the Europeans and indoctrinate them with Christianity in order to rewrite their brain, in order to rewrite their history, their memory. Maybe people don't understand that. You could go to some museum, you could look at the torture chambers that the Catholic Church created, right? Splitting people in half because they didn't want to accept their religion. I mean, and then they want to talk about religion comes in the name of peace. Listen to me. Anytime you have religious war, it was never for peace. It was for control and for profit. And that's the truth, right? You always talk about truth, but we don't want to hear the truth. We rather the lies, right? So there you go. When I talk about the contradiction of Christianity, that's what I talk about. They want to hear lies. Our women want to hear lies. They want to live a luxury lifestyle. How the fuck you living a luxury lifestyle? Right? A very small percentage of men make a certain amount of money. But they want you and I to go kill ourselves to give them the life that they want. And what are they doing for us? What are they doing for us? Right? Because the churches have corrupted their mind. Because you know why? The money that you give them is going back into the church. It goes back into their pastor's pocket. That's why he's driving Mercedes, BMWs, right? Ferraris, Bentleys. Okay? And y'all go buy his book. And his book is not saying nothing but bullshit. You know, I'm telling you, you gotta wake up your mind, people. This world is being destroyed not because of Satan, right? Again, not because of Satan, right? Because if you understand, and if you go and you read the other gospel, right, your so-called, even in the Bible, Satan is called what? He's called the morning star, and then later on, Jesus became the morning star. So how could that be, right? You gotta understand exactly what it is that they're doing. The morning star is telling you that there is two sides to your mind. You have a dark side and the light side, an enlightenment side, or do you always want to remain in darkness, right? So you elevating and enlightening your mind, you become Christ-like. You have a Christ mind. It's not a person. It means you become anointed and knowledge. This is why Christ was used as a term for those who had the knowledge, not some figure that they give you. Anyway, I'm going to leave you guys with this book. Go and read the book called Historical Christ, Mythical Jesus by Gerald Massey.
I like that. Yeah.
Okay? And he talks about who Yeshua was, right? He wasn't some God or anything like that. You know, again, but because we don't have those knowledge, we tend to not quite understand. But anyway, talk to you guys in the next video. All right? Go get that book.